welcome to Brighton, everyone. I hope everyone's nice and warm and fed and got their drinks. I'm Sophie. I'm just starting up you guys. We have Jeremy here too. And just to let you know that we will be recording and live streaming. So if you don't want to be in any photos or in the cameras, let us know and don't put your face up to them. Yeah. So we are starting with Jeremy first to talk, and then there will be drinks over at the Joker pub if you're interested. A big thank you to Eagle Labs for having us, and I will pass you over to Cameron for Silicon Brighton.
Thank you very much. Hello, my name is Cameron, and I'm from Silicon Brighton, and we are the hosts of Brighton and Hove's digital tech sector. We support a variety of different meetup groups, including Brighton R of all things, which is why I'm here today. If there are any tech topics that you think you might be interested in, please come and chat to any of us, and we'll throw you to the right place for the meetups, meetup.com, where we have all of our events. We just want to say a big thank you to our supporters who offer us their space, their venues, time, finance, all to help us do what we do, which we love doing. And another big thank you to our sponsors as well, who do all the same as well. If you would like to keep up to date with all of our activities, it is this Linktree QR code here. We've got access to our Slack channel, our socials, as well as such as LinkedIn and all of our meetups that occur on. The Slack is really, really good because we offer up job opportunities, discussions after event and pre-event, and yeah, just general community, which is really nice to see from everyone. And finally, we have our big festive meetup coming up, which is at the Hove Albion pub. So that'll be a lovely festive occasion that everyone can come along to. The week before, we've also got our leaders event, which is a special Christmas one where I'll be singing and playing a bit of guitar, as well as I think we've got a comedian as well, and hopefully a DJ coming through. I'll pass back to Sophie, but thank you very much, guys.
Thank you. I also want to quickly bring up Rowan to come and stand up and give us a talk about Eagle Labs.
Thank you very much. So yeah, hi everyone. For those who don't know anything about Eagle Labs, just to kind of give you an overview, we are a co-working space, but we're always a business incubator. So we help businesses to grow and scale. We're in the Eagle Lab Brighton right now. So if you've got a business idea or a business, or you're kind of looking to grow it or scale it, then please do talk to us or kind of scan the QR code. We've got loads and loads of free support to kind of help businesses grow and scale. So yeah, and we love to host events like tonight and support the tech community. So I think I'm passing over to Jeremy. Is that right? Yeah, perfect. Anyway, enjoy.
Claps as well and everything. Right. When we had Manchester a few weeks ago, somebody managed to give a whole 30 to 45-minute talk whilst holding their beer and not drop it, but I don't trust myself. So I shall leave it here to go for sips. Thank you very much for coming to the final Brighton R of 2024. For those of you that are in the room and those of you that are online, you might be pleased, straight disappointed to hear that you've got me for the night. And I'm actually they are two talks, but I'm going to merge them into one. And I'm going to tell you, first of all, a little bit about the EARL Conference that took place this year. So this was our conference that took place over at the Grand down in Brighton. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about that, but most will give you the highlights, what we spoke about, what we heard from our speakers, and what happened, because we want to get you excited and make you come back next year. And then I'm going to give you a talk about Shiny. So you're actually going to hear some proper R stuff. You might see some R code on the screen, and you might even see a demo of a Shiny app as well. I know there are data visualization enthusiasts in the audience tonight, so it's not my color palette or anything like that. I just I need to say that up front. So if you want to come and say, oh, I didn't like the colors in that, not my choice of colors. Some of the other things were my choice, but we'll talk about that as we get there. So brand new clicker, because I lost one recently. So if you're here last tonight, make sure I take this home with me. I've lost a clicker. I've lost a lot of tech recently. So let's talk about EARL. What is an EARL, right? It's not Earl's Court. It's not some dodgy American TV program that took place a long time ago. EARL stands for the Enterprise Applications of the R Language Conference. And this year, can I say it here? We brought Python into it. Can we get a boo, Python? Yeah, that's for Laura if she's watching at home. Anyway, so yeah, we brought Python into EARL this year. So what is it? It's people talking and sharing stories of real life use cases in R and Python. It took place down at the Grand in September. We had 40, I think it's 45. There you go, 45. I presented these slides about 6 times now. They've been in London, Manchester, Bristol, and God knows where else. So I should hopefully know the numbers. We had over 40 fantastic speakers at EARL. We had 4 inspiring keynotes, including somebody called Hadley Wickham. If you're in the audience, you might know who he is as an R person. But we had keynotes and workshops from POSIT, Microsoft, the BBC. So we had really fantastic, inspiring people in the room. And we had 3 days, 200-ish people coming from across the globe to descend upon Brighton as the R and Python capital of the UK. I said we had 45 speakers. We had some fantastic chairs and hosts and supporters and help. These are mugshots. This is everybody that was involved in EARL. Now, I have one EARL goodie bag to give away. If your face is on this slide, you cannot play this game. There are in this room 2 people whose face is on this slide. If you want to win an EARL goodie bag and your face is not on there, you have 30 seconds to find a person that either spoke or hosted or assisted at EARL to win a goodie bag. I shall the whole screen, and not me as well, by the way. John, you've got a goodie bag. Right, can somebody find the other one? Anybody find the other one? Make it harder. If nobody can find it, I can tell you what row it's on. We're all rows and columns with data, aren't we? Bottom row. Anybody see anybody on the bottom row that's in the room tonight? This is not a game to get rid of EARL goodie bags from my garage, I promise. It is a game to get rid of EARL goodie bags from my garage, obviously. Can anybody see somebody on the bottom row that was, oh God, I played this game in London. I played it in Manchester. They were brilliant audiences. Come on, Brighton. Can anybody see on the bottom row? And it's not me. So I'm narrowing it down. Yes, who said Fiona? Who said Fiona? Tim. There we go. There's an EARL goodie bag for you. Oh, right. I've got to remember Brighton are a tough crowd for next year. Right. Okay. What happened at EARL? What I find is really great about conferences like EARL or any conference that takes place over 2 or 3 days, you might hear 30 talks, but actually you can start grouping them into 3 or 4. Okay, we've got 6 here because we work in hexes in R, but you can start to group them into themes. And actually, there were probably 6 themes coming out of that. I'm going to start with geospatial because obviously Sean's in the audience. We had Sean, we had a few other people talking about some of the fantastic ways that you can use R to depict geospatial data. Whenever Sean talks, this is not a plug for his talk next week at Brighton R as well, at Brighton Data Forum as well. I learned something new, but particularly the way that you can visualize maps, particularly the way that coordinates work on a mapping system. Love the example that you show of Canada, but geospatial analytics in R is quite powerful, and there are a lot of people doing really clever things with it. And if you want to see clever things in geospatial, come here next week and see Sean. That was not a plug. That was not even an intended thing for this talk, because it's the first time I've done it with you in the audience. But geospatial and R together are very powerful. What we also found out earlier is that measurement is hard. Now, this doesn't matter what industry you're in. We had a few people talk about marketing and how it's really hard to measure the effectiveness of marketing campaigns. On the flip side, we had people tell us how difficult it is to measure animals. How many dogs are there in the world? The Dogs Trust was saying, you get all these numbers and all these studies, but actually everyone's got a different number, and then we do our own and there's a different number. It's really hard. It's hard to measure the bird population, the fish population. So from marketing to animals to all sorts of other things, measurement is really tough. So if you're finding this tough when you're sitting at your desk, you're not alone. And basically, everybody's having the same problem. So don't feel like it's, oh my God, I can't measure what we're doing. Actually, it's kind of a global thing, no matter what industry you're in. We also found out from a lot of people that AI is making waves. It's great. You've got technologies like Bedrock and Whisper AI, but it's not going to replace us yet. There's still the need for us as humans to be able to validate the code that we're writing, be it in R, be it in Python. AI is not actually ready to take over the world yet. There are even some people suggesting that maybe AI in a few years could be this kind of, not quite a fad, but we might not trust it as much once it gets more and more developed. So basically, don't panic. AI is not going to overtake you or change what you do. AI is here and we should embrace it and use it, but we should use it to supplement what we're doing. We heard a lot about Shiny in the Python community. Now, this is where I'm going to say something that, oh no, the cameras are on. Okay, cameras are on. Right, might have to edit this bit out afterwards. I can't be online saying this. Yeah. No. Basically, we heard a bit about Shiny in Python, and in Python. On the flip side, we don't have the Python community that we have in R. So it's really easy to build the apps, but there's not a lot of add-on packages. There's not a lot of things that have been developed by other people that you can use within your app. So if Python gets a community, so anybody here that's built Shiny apps in Python or that's thinking of doing it, if people can share some of the work that they've been doing or some of the functions they've been writing, this could become a really powerful tool. And then the final thing is that strong analysis needs a really good backbone. So quite a few people are talking about challenges with analytics, and you don't start the data project correctly, you don't collect the data that you want correctly, or you collect the data and you don't read it and use it correctly. I'm going to talk a little bit about that in a second. But if you're starting an analytics project, make sure that you've got the foundations of that correct first. So what data are you using? Where is it stored? How are you going to get it? We also had a guy called Hadley in the room. You may know him, or you may have heard of him. Hadley said lots of things. Now, genuinely, if Hadley Wickham talks at an R event, I think he could stand up and say, guys, guess what? This R thing that I've been doing for a few years, a bit of a joke, really. I just code in Python. And I reckon everybody would go off and code in Python. But he said a few things. I'm not going to read all of them. In fact, credit to Amit, who is a member of London R, the London R community. He wrote a wonderful post on it, and I thought I couldn't have put this better myself. Can we use it on a slide? But Hadley was talking about reproducibility in code, but also security. Security is really important and probably one of the most overlooked things when we write code. We write a bit of code, we stick it online somewhere. We don't really care what it's accessing. But there's a few security tips from kind of Hadley Wickham himself. I mean, that's probably the best thing to look at, really. So I will leave this up for a minute. But also in terms of processing data, we all know about the trouble with CSVs. And actually, there are better tools to use than CSV tools themselves. So start to think about how you're ingesting that data, but then how you're using it in R and how you're commenting your code as well. So there's quite a lot that we can do to just make our code a little bit better without working too hard. Naturally, I'm going to tell you that EARL was fantastic, but our delegates are going to tell you that as well. So a couple of quotes that we've got here. You can see smiling, happy, clappy faces and all that. I think that was straight after Hadley's talk. I mean, what a picture to put up on a slide. But people really loved it. We loved doing it. We brought it to Brighton. It's the first time that we've run it. Our NPS scores were 9 out of 10. I am telling you all of this. It is true. But the reason I'm telling you is because we want you to come back next year. Clicker's not, there we go. We want you to come back next year. Oh, next year, the 14th to the 16th of October. We will be next door at the Hilton. If you scan this wonderful QR code, should get out of the way of that, 20% off all tickets up until the 31st of December. So at 10 minutes to midnight, if you're wondering what to do, don't think about popping the cork on a champagne. Make sure you've got your EARL ticket secured for next year. But I'll tell you what, you're a tough crowd with the competition, but let's see if we can do this. Who wants to come for free? Yes, right, free, excellent, free. Lots of people want to come for free. You can, obviously, with strings attached. If you would like to speak or host a workshop at EARL next year, 2025, here's another. We don't do too many QR codes, don't worry. Scan this QR code. You have until the 28th of February next year to submit your idea for an EARL talk. We've had quite a few already. We've only been open a week. I might even be in double figures now, but you have until the 28th of Feb next year. Submit your application. If it gets chosen, then you will get a free ticket to the day of your talk and the evening event at a fantastic Brighton venue that I cannot quite reveal yet. But it is pretty much booked and it's going to be awesome. And you'll get a free ticket there and a free ticket to EARL. And we want to see people from Brighton there. What I will say is the ratio of people in this room that were at EARL is the highest amongst any of the cities I presented this in. So well done, Brighton. I shall pause for a second. I'm happy to take questions on EARL before I talk about Shiny. Anyone in the room? Any questions? Great, I'm going to have some beer and then we'll talk about Shiny then. Okay. So whilst I love to stand here and talk about all things R and EARL, I'm going to talk a bit about Shiny apps first. First of all, because we're here, we're hosting the event, and we haven't told you who we are at Datacove. So I'm going to tell you a little bit of that. This is not a sales pitch or anything like that, but this is just me telling you who it is on the stage in front of you. I think I know most of you in the audience. So I'm Jeremy. I'm the founder of Datacove. We are Brighton-based R, Python, and Shiny experts, and we specialize in 3 core areas. So customer analytics. This is to help unearth your most valuable customers. That could be anything from simple database analytics to understanding who your best customer is, to more complex statistical customer modeling, so things like next best action modeling and segmentation to split your customers into smaller groups. We also specialize in marketing analytics. So marketing analytics is to help you save money on your marketing budget. So that could be anything from a simple campaign report to full-blown econometrics, causal impact, media mix modeling to help understand how much you should spend on every single marketing channel. And then we also specialize in process automation. So this is to get rid of the jobs that you hate at work forever. So it's normally things that involve lots of spreadsheets. We write a bit of code and it's gone forever. We also run quite a few of these meetups. So it's not just Brighton. As I said, I've given this talk in lots of other places as well. If you ever find yourself in any of these other wonderful cities, then we have meetup communities in all of them as well. And we would love to see you there. We do a few other things as well. Obviously, EARL. We do training courses, which we'll talk about a little bit at the end. And we also help build your data team, which is our newest service offering as well. So if you're trying to flesh out a full service data team and need to find the right people, we run a lot of these meetups and communities. So we know the people for you. We can help place them into your organization. If you want to find out more, there's some flyers over at the front. Right, salesy bit over, and it's not really a salesy bit, but it's just to tell you a bit more about who we are and why am I standing here talking to you about Shiny app. So I'm going to just introduce a problem to you first of all. So this talk kind of comes in 2 parts. Here's a problem or here's a challenge that somebody's got. And I'll introduce that challenge, but then I'll talk about kind of why we chose Shiny as the solution and how we compiled that app. A few tips on trying to make Shiny apps just look a little bit less boilerplatey. If you worked with a standard Shiny boilerplate before, kind of, oh yeah, that was built in Shiny. I know how that was built. I'm not going to do a live demo. I've got a pre-recorded demo because I'm not brave enough to do a live demo. So I've got a pre-recorded video that I'll show you as well. And then happy to take some questions at the end. So let's just go and talk a little bit about the work that we've been doing. So this was a local... Oh, I thought I went 2 slides on there. No, I've got the right slide on the screen. Just looked like it moved very quickly. This was a local government project. So this was working with local government to build a tool, a decision tool to help councils across the UK. And it was to help them make better decisions across, it still is, this project is still ongoing, as you'll find out in a second, make better decisions across 4 key areas. So health and well-being and nature and sustainability. But kind of why these 4 areas? Great places and great cities and great centres are built on great people. Now, what is the one thing that people have that is most important? That is their health and well-being. So if we can understand more about the health and well-being of people that live in our city, then we can make that city a better place for them. Now, how do we make it a better place? People need to get around. If we're living in a city, we will all be moving around that city at some point, and we'll all be moving around and using the infrastructure in that city. And I think we can all agree that in this day and age, we need to make sure that infrastructure is sustainable. So this is not just the transport, this is how the city are performing on things like recycling and energy usage. This is making sure that the entire infrastructure in that city is fully sustainable. And of course, as we're moving around, a city has nature as well. It has birds, bees, butterflies, but then it also has things like waterways and land. And we've got to understand more about the areas that people are using to make these cities better places. So we've got this thing is called Explore, and it's actually part of a 5-year program that we're running alongside local government, local councils as well. Now we're here at this bit in red, so we're actually towards the end of the 5-year program. So we had this idea of let's build something that brings all of the data together. Last year, so 2023 and early 2024, we kind of built an alpha product in Shiny. You're not going to see the alpha product tonight because no one's got their sunglasses. The colors are a bit bright on that. So we've got a beta product with some better colors on it, which you'll see very shortly. And then it's going to form into a soft launch next year. And we will then roll this tool out. But the rollout doesn't mean it's the end. There is a third phase that we'll be rolling into in kind of March, April to try and constantly improve the tool. And this is bringing together publicly available data. So data sources will always change. We'll always get better data sources as well that we can kind of integrate into the tool. Just a little bit about the partnership, because I think you can't give a talk without loads of lovely logos on the slides. So the lead partner for this is Natural England. So we've been working with Natural England to bring this all together. And that's obviously got government funding behind it. In order to get a tool to work successfully, we need to have a few councils on board to be able to test it and give us feedback and make sure that we're building something that is useful for people. So we've got a few council partners. We're hosting it on local partnerships as well. We've also got academic partners because this brings a different perspective to the table when we're trying to build a solution. So having the academics was really helpful because it allows us to look at this from a completely different perspective. We've got a lot of support from the Environment Agency. There's a lot of Environment Agency in there, particularly when it comes to the nature side of things, and others as well. So massive thank you to all of these people, because without these people, this wouldn't have been possible. So why did we do it? What's the challenge here? When it comes to local government, the challenge is really twofold, and these twofold, they're at very different ends of the scale. So at one end of the scale, there is loads of publicly available information out there. There is loads of information on health, well-being, nature, and sustainability. But the problem is that when you start looking and try to unpick all of the data sources that are there, it's a bit of a minefield. And to a non-data person, it's, I've got to make some decisions. You've just given me 100 sources of data. I don't really know what I'm looking at. I don't know how I'm going to improve my decision-making on the health of the people in my area because I've got so many numbers and it's too much. On the other end of the scale, and where people have tried to solve this problem before, is simplification. Now, we all know simplification can be quite useful and powerful sometimes. But in this context, if you walk up to somebody and say, oh, yeah, the well-being of people in your area is 7.4. Great. Yeah, that's wonderful. What does that mean? It's like, but it's 7.4. And it's so people have simplified it too much and given one number to try and explain everything. So we need something that sits in the middle. We need to be able to give people powerful access to data and really simple ways of making insights from that data, but not simplify it to a single number. And the solution to that is the Explore platform. So Explore is made up of 3 core components. This is the Shiny app, or this is a prototype of the Shiny app, and that's the bit we're going to focus on tonight. But we've also got factor maps, because factor maps tell us how different data sources are related to each other. Because as I said, the health and the well-being will be linked to the sustainability sources as well. So it's finding out how individual pieces of data on health. So for example, we've got data on anxiety and happiness. Now those 2 things are actually probably quite closely linked to each other. You know, if you're really anxious, maybe you're going to be less happy. So how do these things link? And this is where the factor maps come in. But then we also need to think about what's happening next. So we've got the horizon scanning maps as well. Again, not going to talk in too much detail about them this evening. This tells us kind of what's on the horizon. I mean, the horizon scanning, what's going to happen, what we think is going to happen next, so that we can bring all this together. This is kind of what's happening now. This is how things are linked, and this is what will happen next. So I'll talk a bit about the application. There we go. We're moving on. Why did we pick Shiny for this? It's one of those things. There's loads of tools that you can build. There's loads of tools you can use to build things. Why did we pick Shiny? Shiny's really good because the data that we're accessing, a lot of it is open source public data from the Environment Agency and from ONS and others as well. The Environment Agency and ONS have brilliant open APIs that are easily connectable into R. So bringing all the data into R was actually quite simple. Shiny also allows us for a lot of flexibility. There are a lot of requirements for how the app should look, feel, and be used by the end user. And if we start to design this in anything else, it just makes it a little bit harder. So using Shiny was definitely a plus point. Cost effectiveness, I think we all know, if you haven't built or used Shiny apps in R before, Shiny is a really cost effective way of housing applications and data visualization. So if you think about, for example, if you're building a visualization in Power BI licenses are really expensive. A Shiny server can cost anything from nothing up to, I mean, the maximum, and I've never seen anybody use the maximum Shiny server, $350 a month. One cost. Doesn't matter if 10 people are using it, doesn't matter if 100 people are using it, it's one cost. And as I said, I've never seen anybody need that all-inclusive, all-intensive package. So the one below that, which is the one I have seen people use, is $100 a month. And that's it. That's all you're paying. You're not paying licensing fees. And naturally, because this was a government app, Shiny and R have got a really strong community within local government. So trying to build something that could then be easily understood by others within the business using R allowed that to happen. And what we built is something that looked like this. You'll see a video of this shortly. And I'll just talk you through a little bit of it because the design phase for this app was quite an important phase to make sure that people could understand what they were seeing, but also they could digest it as well. I'm also going to talk a little bit later on about accessibility. So it wasn't just about building an app. We need to make sure this is accessible to everybody that's going to use it. So what about partially sighted people? What about people that, you know, can't see wavy lines or can't understand what charts are showing? So we did a lot of things to make sure this dashboard was fully accessible to anybody that was using it. With the design, so this is, as I say, this is a prototype. You'll see the video shortly, but we've gone for a sidebar layout. So if you haven't worked with Shiny before, you can do sidebar layout and main layout. We've built in our own buttons. We've customized the buttons. We've curved the corners. We built in a top bar. If you want to see how we've done some of that, I will show you that very shortly. But we've also used that. This doesn't look very dynamic because it's not a video, but we've also used dynamic charts as well. Any ggplot fans in the room, you might want to shut your ears in a couple of minutes. I might say some things that aren't very nice, but so we've done all of that. And I suppose we've got an audience of our people. And you probably think, well, how do we do that? How do we make things look like this? Because if you've seen a Shiny app before, Shiny apps that have been built very in a standard way have a very kind of iconic, is that the right word? Look, I don't know, but that, you know, it's a Shiny app, and we wanted to make sure that this wasn't looking like a Shiny app and it was more something people could interact with. So how do we do it? I'm first going to talk about charts, and you're going to see some movement on here. So as I said, ggplot users, cover your ears, but ggplot's great. And there is no way I'm going to stand here and say ggplot is useless, not useful. ggplot has got me through many, many years of coding, presentations, and passing data on to other people. The thing with ggplot is if you're building it in an online application, is it's static. So you build a chart and it's just like, that's great, it's static. I don't really know much about the numbers on there. You can't fully customize every aspect of it because ggplots themselves, they don't quite have every single chart type that you might want. So we had to do something different. And this is where we use high charts. So we've used high charts for a few of the things that we've built. High charts is a JavaScript add-on application to R. So it's the high charter, as in high chart ER. It's really weird that it's not high chart R. I don't know why it's got ER at the end, but high charter package. And this means that you can get kind of really clear rendering visuals within an application. So when the user loads the page, this is what they'll see. They'll see it build, and then you can hover over it and see the numbers. So you've got proper tooltips on it. It's much better for accessibility as well, because if you've got a screen reader on your machine, the screen reader will tell you what people are hovering over at the same time. And the chart library is much deeper in high charts. You know, it's not just, I've got a line graph here. We built really nice donut charts. You can build heat maps a lot more easily than you can in ggplot2. So using a JavaScript add-on library was really, really useful. But JavaScript alongside CSS themselves were also a really big part of what we built. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about some of the things on the app. So you've got this lovely little red bar at the top. That's lovely, lovely in red. Sounds dangerous when you've got it red, but you can see we've got a logo here. So you can start customizing things like logos. But within Shiny, what we've done is we have built the entire app just using classes and identifiers. So what do I mean by classes and identifiers? This is where you use things like JavaScript or CSS to give every item a class or an ID, and then you refer to that item as an ID. What do I mean? So I'm just going to put some code up here. So this top bar, we've called it a top bar. You can see that is the class of that item. That's a top bar. And you can then customize the color and say, oh, apparently there's a laser on this. Let's see if that works. No, it doesn't. Obviously, I'm not having great luck with clickers at the moment. No, that's just point. So you can customize the color. You can customize where you've put the text. You can put some padding into it. But then you can also start to put other items on there as well. So you can start to build a class for every item within that dashboard. And then if you want to refer to the class, so here we've got, this is the very first thing on the dashboard. We've got a fluid row. If you've used Shiny before, this is kind of the layout that you use to put pieces of content in. So we've got a fluid row, and we've just referred this item is a class top bar. And so then all of the things that we've put elsewhere in the code to define that class get assigned to that top bar. So it becomes red. You've got a logo in there because you can see we've got a top bar image there as well. You've got your text and you've got all of your fonts that you set up. And then we can do that with other items as well. So I'm not going to show you every single one, but for example, here you've got these, which we kind of call our top insight bars. And you can see we've colored one of them light blue and one of them dark blue, but we've got, it might not be show up as well on here, but we've got some rounded corners. So again, you can classify that, and we've called this a top insight row, and we've kind of rounded the corners off. So I just put a little comment in there, and we've increased the right-hand margin a little bit. So, you know, for certain small pages, if you're on a smaller web page, the right-hand bit might cut off. So we just tried to kind of make sure there's some padding in there as well. And then again, if you're putting in a column in your Shiny app, so this bit here is a column, these two things, you can then refer to that as a top insight row class as well. And this is just a much more elegant way of doing it, because you can set up the structure of every element within your app. You can give it some attributes, and then those attributes, you can then use them across every item within the app. And then the other thing that we did, naturally getting a standard color palette was important, but we wanted to make sure, this is the thing that infuriates me the most about the app. I'm just going to show you because there's pictures on here. When the app loads, it automatically defaults to the first alphabetical council in the UK, which is Ada. Ada don't have any data for 2019, so the charts blooming break. And of course, when I first built the apps, what's happened? What have we done with the data? No, they just don't have any data for that year, but it just looks broken. As an analyst, you don't want broken data. We've set up, again, customized label fonts and axis fonts for all of the charts. So you set them up once, and then every time you build a chart, you can then apply that color palette to your line chart. You can do the same for bar charts as well. Now, logos are quite important. So logos, if you're building a logo into, or an image into your Shiny app, it's actually quite easy to do. So this is my application folder. I've got some data in here. I've got my R data, and somewhere down here, I've got my UI, and I've got my server as well. I've got this folder here, the www folder. If you put your imagery in there, you can just load that into a Shiny app, and that image can be used wherever you position it. So if you go back a slide or two, if I go back to this one, you can see that we've got, say, logos. These are more icons. That's the well-being icon. So we've got the icon in the top left-hand corner up here. So we put logos in there. But then also, R doesn't have that many preloaded fonts. If you built charts in R before, you're limited by the fonts that are pre-built within R. But no problem, because you can put your own fonts in too. So we've customized the fonts. We've picked a specific font face for the app, And you can pick any font face you want. And again, you can just put some code in there to say, great, this is the font I want. There you go. This is the font I want to have in my application. I load that in. And then that font, you can then set a global variable at the top of your Shiny app so that everything's in that same font. And then if you want to change one font across the way, you can then put that font in for a specific individual line item. So set the font at the top of the app, because then it just carries through to the entire Shiny app. I'm going to talk a bit about accessibility as well. So as I said at the start, accessibility was quite a big thing for this app. We needed to make sure, we don't know who's going to use it. So we need to make sure that anybody that uses the app or that opens the screen understands what data they're looking at. And there are probably a few key things with that. So the font, we literally had, it was a call. Luckily, it wasn't a face-to-face. We had a call, and we split it into 2 calls for 3 hours, where I was sitting there live coding, changing font sizes and colors. It was the most enjoyable thing in the world, obviously. So, oh, what if we increase that to 18, 20, 22, 16? It's like, can we have that blue slightly lighter and that one side? So we were just sitting there doing that. But it meant that everybody that was involved and all the key decision makers could actually input into what made this app look good for them. So we got a font size of 20 here. Now this we felt enabled people that even were partially sighted to be able to understand what that app was trying to convey. On the other side, with vision impairments, we've got some alt text on the charts, but also all of the charts. What's really good about high charts and some of the other libraries in R, you can put a tag on the back of the chart. So you don't see the tag. It doesn't come up with, this is a bar chart telling you about anxiety on the y-axis and time on the x-axis. That would be a little bit much to start putting like massive paragraphs of text. But you can add that text onto the back of the chart so that if somebody moves their mouse over the chart and they've got a screen reader installed, they can hear that text read out to them, and it makes it more accessible. Also, HTML attributes, making sure it's a really, really simple thing, but when you're building a Shiny app, because some people might have screen readers on and might be using accessibility, make sure you tell them that it's English. Like, I've actually written this in English. It's one line of code saying language is EN, GB, and then the screen reader knows what it's dealing with. It can probably work it out anyway, but just in case, really, really simple thing to be able to understand that. Also, make sure that when things are loading, if there's any like time delays, you can put, I haven't got it on here, but there's a little bit of code that you can put in for a time delay so that if a screen reader is on, it's expecting there to be a time delay on a load. And this means that the screen reader will give that back to somebody that is trying to access and visualize this application. So accessibility is really important, and we wanted to make sure that this was built in across the board. It's worth saying just before I go to demonstration. So I'm going to demonstrate one of the tools. Now, if you remember back to the beginning, we had health, well-being, nature, and sustainability. So we had 4. There's actually 4 tools. I'm not going to demo all 4 to you today. I'm not going to demo nature and sustainability. Nature is, I mean, it's very niche. You really need to understand your populations, your environments. You need to know what types of land there are. So I think if I demo that, it's just, it might go over the heads of some people here. Same with sustainability. You need to know a lot about energy, climate, fossil fuels. So I'm just going to show you the well-being app, because I think we all understand things like health, happiness, anxiety, life satisfaction. Get all the words out properly. So I'm going to show you that. There's also like an overview dashboard as well. So we've got the 4 tabs, if you like, or 4 links, but then we've got one that brings them all together. Here are the top insights on health. Here are the top insights on nature and sustainability. So quick demo. I did record this because I just don't really want to give live demos. So this is the wellbeing tool, as you can see from wellbeing. So what we're going to do is we can select our local authority. So local authority is going to use this. So we're going to go in and we're going to select. What do we think we're going to select, everybody? Come on, anyone got any ideas what we might select up here? Yeah, Brighton and Hove. Yeah, it's a good one to choose, isn't it? I'm sure I selected it quicker than that when I recorded. There we go, Brighton and Hove. So we've got Brighton and Hove. Now we can look here. We've got 2 lines. We've got the light blue line, which tells us how we're doing. We're quite anxious in Brighton and Hove. In fact, the whole of Sussex is quite anxious and unhappy, is what I've learned from this tool. The bottom line here, this shows us the national average. This is where kind of everything is nationally. And you can see Brighton, we're a little bit more anxious than most people across the UK. So you've got the two lines you can hover over. Here we've got a link to the raw data. So if people want to go download the raw data, you can click that link. And if you want to read more on wellbeing indicators, then you've got a couple of links at the bottom here. And you've got your scores at the top. So that's telling us that the most recent data point for Brighton Hove is 2022. We scored 3.3 and national is 3.2. High numbers are worse. You don't want to be more anxious. And then you can look across happiness as well. So actually happiness, where again, we're lower than average, you can take things off. So this is one of the advantages of using high charts. You can just take series off really easily by deselecting them. And you can look at life satisfaction and worthwhile as well in similar ways. So this is the proportion of people that feel their life is worthwhile. Yes, but you can, again, there's a lot more that sits behind that as well.
One for countryside areas. I'm just wondering if the Brighton was more anxious just because it was a city, basically.
It's a good point. Now, what's really interesting, because what I wanted to do, I wanted to almost have like two things on here, so you can have a left and a right. I could bring Brighton in, and you could bring, I don't know, Ada would be another good one in. It's next to Brighton. It's a bit more green, maybe a bit nicer. But it's, oh no, we mustn't have people compare themselves to their neighbours and somebody else, because then if they know that's someone better than them, then they might not be very happy. So let them look at their own data. Don't let them make it hard to compare one to the other. Not my choice, obviously, but I think you should be able to do that. Obviously, it's hard. You can do it, but you'd have to select in the two individual areas yourself and say not my choice when you go with somebody else's design. I will take more questions. Some fun going on outside tonight. Hopefully they weren't looking at my app and looking at the colors or anything like that. I was just going to bring this. I mean, I'm basically nearly done, but for those of you that really want to go and build your own shiny apps that look cool, here are a list of packages that we used for this one. Obviously, we did quite a few API connections. Things like HTTR and JSON Lite are really good for connecting APIs up in R. ONS, if you're working with ONS data, somebody, some wonderful person I'd love to meet has collected them all into a package. You can call every data set and it just puts it into a data frame for you automatically. It's epic. And there's hundreds of them. I mean, that is a brilliant package. That was very useful. Obviously we use the tidyverse. We did have some maps in there at one point as well. The maps also have been removed since. Maps, everyone knows where they are. And I say, yeah, but a map looks cool. You hover over your icon on a map and it tells you your score's 7.4. No, I can't have a map in there. So the map went. And then visualization, high charts and R chart, but also just making sure those visuals are customized so that we've got the right fonts in there. So as I said, you can bring pretty much any font into R. So you've got an extra font package and shiny JavaScript as well. I have spoken for a long time on two things, and you're probably all thinking it's time for me to stop. Well, the good news is it is. So I'm going to say thank you very much, and I'm going to open the floor to questions.
Jeremy, you alluded to someone else designing the interface, and I was just wondering, like, where did the design come from, and was there any user testing? Sorry, UX question.
Where did it? So, I mean, the design. There was a team, an agency of designers on the project who came up with the design. They came up with the little logos, the icons that you saw in the top left-hand corner. I believe, and so the answer is I don't know for certain. I believe a UX person was involved in that and in the testing of that. And I believe that before the apps were put on Shiny server, that a UX person did test them. I cannot say for certain, but I believe that is the case.
Thank you.
Just wondering about the data side of things. Did you, because you said you were making API calls, is that live API calls when somebody clicks a button, or is there sort of a database underneath that?
It's a bit of both. So the things like, because the ONS data sources are the ONS data source is quite small. And also what you got to remember is it's quite macro data. It's kind of, it's city or county or area level data. So because the data sets themselves are quite small, it's quite easy to form live API calls. For some of them, there still is a database that sits behind it so that we're not making live API calls. And that's where some of this publicly available API, some of the publicly available data doesn't have an API yet, and it exists. So this makes me feel very scared. These data sources exist as spreadsheet downloads on a website. Now, when we built the first iteration of this app, and it was, yeah, you can connect it to the spreadsheets. No one ever touches the spreadsheets, don't worry. Within 3 days of the rollout of the first one, a spreadsheet was removed from the link, and so obviously everything broke. So hence why in this version, there has to be a database that sits behind it, because being told, yeah, the spreadsheets will be fine, and then they went, no. So a bit of both.
High charter, not used that myself. Would you say you could totally replace what you do with ggplot with high charter, or any drawbacks to using it?
I wouldn't say totally replace, because I think ggplot's really good. If you're putting together a rough and ready visualization that just goes into, I've done a bit of analysis and I just want to show you how this thing's moved over time, and it's not something people are going to interact with, I would probably say ggplot suffices. The really good thing, I didn't bring any high chart code up here, which I should have done in hindsight. So I'm giving this talk again in a few weeks. I'm going to do that. If you've used ggplot2, high charts is really, really easy to use because the actual intuition on it is the same. So, you know, for those that haven't used ggplot here, within ggplot, you build your plot up from like a blank piece of paper. So say, I want a bar chart and I want the x-axis to show time and the y-axis. You do exactly the same thing in high charts. So if you've used ggplot2 before, you'll have no trouble using high charts at all.
Thank you.
Any more?
A quick one. With the accessibility, will you be testing that with someone who does require those, or has it been talks about? Because if it's such a big thing, I just feel like it should be looked into.
That is a good question. My honest answer is I don't know, but I'm also going to find out because I'm intrigued myself. So yeah, any answers that I don't know, particularly if they're pertaining to the data or Natural England stuff, I've been told I can find out and get back to people. Should we pass the mic to Fiona and then to Peter afterwards?
Yeah, it was just a quick comment on that, is that if it was using the government design standard, I think there's a requirement that they have to do some testing. So it would be interesting to find out the answer.
No pressure then there.
Hi, yeah. Will this be a public-facing website, and will you be using Shiny in production as well?
Not at present. It sits behind a login wall, so you need to be a local council with a login on the website to be able to access it. I don't know if there are plans for it to be public. I don't believe there are, but that doesn't mean that there aren't.
I always like it in a plot where when you show variability, could be error bars, I suppose. But one of the things that maybe you could do, rather than plotting just an average line, you could do the sort of transparency thing where you plot all of the lines on top of each other, and then you can see you get it in the New York Times and stuff. Do you know what I mean? You sort of get a transparency build up. Do you think that could work with this plotting software? Is it worth a go?
Potentially, yeah. I mean, the thing at the moment, our data sources are very simple. So you got two series. It could. There are some. I'm trying to think. Some on. I can't remember if it's nature or sustainability, where you've got multiple lines. That could become useful if those lines start to migrate closer towards each other over time. But you could do that. You can with high charts. There is a zoom functionality on the plots as well. So the thing to think about with high charts versus ggplot, high charts has been designed, it's a JavaScript library, it's been designed specifically for applications, HTML documents where people want to see trends and see how things move, whereas ggplot has been designed for static. So you can zoom in, zoom out. You can do some quite cool and clever things with a high chart as well.
Yeah, because one of the issues you can hit is if it's actually lots of lines on top of each other, you can hit memory issues, right? Whereas actually you want something that's maybe a vector graphic to do that. I don't know if there's something clever that can do that. I'm just thinking out loud. Yeah, I'll pass on.
I was just interested to know how the pilots went and kind of what kind of coverage it was getting within those councils, as in who was using it to kind of test it and those kind of things.
Yeah, so I mean, I wasn't involved in any of the user testing, so I know that across the board, quite a few people at Surrey were using it. I'm not 100% sure who. All of these things I can find out. If anybody is interested in the more kind of government side of it, the actual ethos behind the project, I've been told I can pass on details. So I'm not going to stick them up on the screen for GDPR. But if anyone's interested, come and chat to me afterwards.
I'm actually from Norfolk as well, so I was quite interested.
I'll show you what Norfolk looks like in a minute. Any more questions? Any online, Cam? That's a lot of questions. Well, I'm going to say thank you then. Great news, you get me again, but I promise I will be brief. Announcement. So does anybody here have an announcement they wish to make? Anybody that's hiring, looking for work, anything like that?
Hello. Yeah, hiring basically for a data architect 1 day a week in London. Very nice company, very nice office. Yeah, it's for Mintel basically, which is a market intelligence agency. 52 years old, so not going anywhere. Offices around the world. But yeah, anyone interested or know anyone, be great to hear from them. So it's a really good role basically. It's all of the data in Mintel is your responsibility. So
Does the first part of that sentence compute with the second part of that?
Just the whole business basically. But yeah.
The whole business. So if you want a job where the whole business is on your hands, come and chat to Tim at the end. But no, honestly, I know Mintel. I've not worked there, but I know Mintel very well. I know they're a great company. I know they've got great offices. So if you know somebody, help a local Brighton our friend out. I'm quite sad. As you've heard, we've run meetups across the country this year. We've run them in Manchester, London, Brighton, Bristol, Portsmouth, and this is the end of the road. This is the last one, not ever. This is the last one for the year. It's been a journey. I'm very sad. I'm also very tired. I was in Bristol 2 weeks ago. I was in Manchester 2 weeks before that. I'm quite enjoying the fact I don't have to travel again until January. But we will be back next year. We'll be back here next year. We have Brighton we have Brighton Pie as well. So these are all of the dates for next year. If you want to mark your diaries up now, these should all be on Meetup, I believe. So you can go in, you can register for them. This very last one of the year, this is a special one, Thursday, 20th of November. God, that's a long way away. Thursday, the 20th of November next year will be the first ever R and Pie collaborative meetup. So these will be Brighton, and this one is a collaborative meetup as well. And you've got EARL in between these two. So plenty of opportunities for meetups for next year. If you would like to speak at a meetup next year, please come and chat to us, because speakers are always the hardest people to find. If you have something that you want to share on R or Pi or any of our other meetups, please come and let us know. That would be wonderful. We also do training as well in both R and Python. There's more flyers at the front. So there's a flyer on building a data team and one on training if you want to grab that. Here's a snippet of some of the courses that we offer. So R, Python, Shiny. We offer a few generic training courses as well. And that's basically it. I'm going to say most people are off to the Joker. Unfortunately, the Datacove team can't join you in the Joker tonight due to another event. However, if you do go to the Joker, and we encourage you to do so and keep the chat going, you can use or just mention Datacove at the bar, and you can get 10% off your drinks as a little discount as well. I shall leave this slide up right at the very end. So it's just a couple of QR codes. This is tell you a bit more about what we do, and our link tree just gives you all of our meetup dates, all of our meetup communities, access to our training courses, all in one place. So thank you very much for coming, not just tonight, because I'm looking at facing the crowd. Quite a few people have been to all of our meetups, our pie, bit of both, and other things this year. So thank you for all your support in 2024. I hope you have a wonderful festive holiday period. Rest and relax, because I feel I need it. And if I do, I know you do too. And we'll see you all back in 2025. Thank you.